Hello, welcome to Moments That Touch. Sit back and relax because the best story is about to begin.
Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The California sun cast long shadows across Highway 1 as Marcus Holloway's silver Mercedes glided toward Monterey Bay. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel, a detail his wife Sophia didn't miss. She'd been watching him closely ever since he'd insisted on this specific rental house, dismissing her suggestions for the luxurious oceanfront estates they could easily afford. "Are you sure about this place?" Sophia asked, studying her husband's angular profile. After 3 years of marriage, she'd learned to read the micro-expressions that flickered across his face like shadows on water. "It's perfect," Marcus replied, his voice carrying that forced casualness she'd been hearing more often lately. "Sometimes simple is better than luxurious, don't you think?" The house appeared around a bend, a modest 2-story cottage perched on weathered stilts, its gray shingles faded by decades of salt air. Sophia frowned. With Marcus's 7-figure tech executive salary, this seemed deliberately modest. As they pulled into the gravel driveway, Sophia noticed something odd. "Marcus, look at those cameras." She pointed to the security devices mounted under the eaves. "They're all facing away from the house. Probably broken," he said quickly, already grabbing their luggage from the trunk. "Old beach houses, you know how it is." But Sophia had spent enough time in her family's real estate empire to recognize quality when she saw it. These weren't old cameras, they were state-of-the-art models, deliberately angled to create blind spots. Inside, the house smelled of lemon polish and something else, a sharp, chemical undertone that made her nose wrinkle. While Marcus busied himself in the kitchen, Sophia explored. The locks on the doors were industrial grade, far beyond what a beach rental required. The windows had subtle reinforcements, nearly invisible unless you knew what to look for. "Honey, I found some wine in the cabinet," Marcus called out. "Let's have dinner on the deck." As Sophia walked back through the living room, her heel caught on the edge of an ornate Persian rug. Bending to straighten it, her fingers brushed something underneath. A business card, yellowed with age. She pulled it free, squinting at the faded text. Only the initials remained clear. "RK, what's that?" Marcus's voice came from directly behind her, making her jump. "Just an old business card." She held it up. "Must be from a previous guest." The change in Marcus was instant. His jaw tightened, and he snatched the card from her fingers with surprising urgency. "Probably garbage," he muttered, crumpling it into his pocket. "Come on, dinner's ready." But Sophia had glimpsed something in his eyes, not surprised at finding the card, but fear that she had found it. As they sat on the deck, watching the sun melt into the Pacific, she found herself studying her husband with new attention. The way he kept glancing at his phone, the way he positioned his chair to watch both the beach and the house entrance. "Marcus," she said softly, "why did we really come here?" He smiled, reaching for her hand across the table. His palm was damp with sweat. "Can't a man want a quiet weekend with his beautiful wife?" Thunder rumbled in the distance, though the sky remained clear. Sophia squeezed his hand, feeling his pulse race beneath her fingers. Whatever had brought them to this strange house? She was certain of one thing: Marcus hadn't told her the real reason. As darkness fell over Monterey Bay, she found herself wondering what other secrets her husband was hiding, and whether she truly wanted to know the answer. The next morning, Sophia stood before the bathroom mirror applying mascara, when she noticed a tiny imperfection in the glass, no bigger than a pinhole. She leaned closer, her breath fogging the surface. Behind that hole, something glinted. Her stomach dropped. It was a lens. "Marcus," she backed away from the mirror, her voice sharp with alarm. He appeared in the doorway within seconds, still in his pajamas. "What's wrong?" "There's a camera behind the mirror." She pointed with a trembling finger. "Someone's been watching us." Marcus moved past her, examining the mirror with an intensity that seemed practiced. He ran his fingers along the edges, then pulled out his phone's flashlight. "Micro-surveillance device," he muttered. "Probably wireless, judging by the size." Sophia stared at him. "How do you know so much about spy cameras?" We deal with corporate security at work." But his explanation came too smoothly. A knock at the front door interrupted them. Through the window, Sophia saw a man in his 60s, silver-haired, wearing a cardigan despite the warm morning. "That must be the owner," Marcus said, already heading downstairs. I'll handle this. But Sophia followed, her bare feet silent on the stairs. The man at the door had the soft look of someone who'd spent his life behind a desk, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. Mr. and Mrs. Holloway, he said warmly, I'm Roland Kemp, your host. Just stopping by for some routine maintenance. Routine maintenance? Sophia stepped forward. Like checking your hidden cameras? Roland's smile never wavered. Hidden cameras? My goodness, that's concerning. May I take a look? Something passed between the two men, a flicker of understanding that made Sophia's skin crawl. She watched Roland follow Marcus upstairs, noting how he moved through the house with the confidence of someone who knew every corner. While they examined the bathroom, Sophia slipped into the bedroom. If there were secrets in this house, she'd find them herself. She checked behind picture frames, under drawers, inside air vents. Nothing. Then, as she closed the closet door, she noticed the lining was loose at the corner. Her fingers found a slim notebook tucked into the fabric. The pages were filled with different handwriting entries from previous guests. June 3rd, the feeling of being watched is constant now. June 9th, found another camera in the bedroom lamp. How many more? June 15th, we're leaving early. This place isn't right. Roland knows things he shouldn't. The last entry was from just a week ago. If you're reading this, get out. Get out now. Find something interesting. Sophia spun around. Roland stood in the doorway, Marcus hovering behind him. The older man's grandfatherly smile now seemed predatory. Just some old guest comments, she said, sliding the journal behind her back. Ah, yes. Some guests have such imaginations. Roland's eyes never left hers. I've removed the faulty device from your bathroom, probably left by a previous visitor. You'd be surprised what people do in rental properties after he left. Sophia confronted Marcus with the journal. He read it with a frown that seemed theatrical. Honey, these could be pranks. You know how people are. But she saw the truth in the way he avoided her eyes, in the nervous tap of his fingers against his thigh. Marcus knew exactly what was happening in this house, and worse, he'd brought her here anyway. Roland Kemp's visits became a disturbing pattern. Tuesday morning, he appeared with fresh towels they hadn't requested. Wednesday afternoon, he came to check the water heater that worked perfectly. Thursday evening, he arrived with a bottle of wine, insisting they'd won a hospitality gift. Each time, Marcus would guide him to the small office off the kitchen. Closing the door firmly behind them, Sophia would hover nearby, catching fragments of conversation that made no sense. The preparations are on schedule. Phase 2 requires her complete trust. The previous subjects weren't as resilient. When she confronted Marcus, he'd wave off her concerns, just discussing some property improvements he's planning. But Sophia had spent years in boardrooms reading people, and she knew when she was being handled. That night, while Marcus showered, she opened his laptop. His email was protected, but he'd left the browser tab open to a medical journal article, Trust Dynamics in Controlled Environments by Dr. R. Kempner. Kempner. Our KHE, our fingers trembled as she searched the name. The results made her blood run cold. Dr. Roland Kempner, clinical psychologist, license revoked in 1987 for unethical experimentation on couples therapy patients. The photo showed a younger version of their intrusive landlord. Fascinating reading. Sophia's heart hammered as Marcus stood behind her, water still dripping from his hair. You knew, she whispered. You knew who he was, Sophia. I can explain. Then explain. She spun to face him. Explain why you brought me to a house owned by a disgraced psychologist. Explain these secret meetings. Explain why you're lying to me. Marcus reached for her, but she backed away. I heard he reformed. That he was just a harmless old man renting out his beach house. I thought. You thought what? That it would be fun to vacation in a psychopath's laboratory. The front door opened without a knock. Roland entered carrying a tea tray, moving with the confidence of someone who knew they'd be welcome, or at least expected. Oh dear, he said mildly, taking in Sophia's flushed face and Marcus's guilty expression. Have I interrupted a lover's quarrel? Nothing a cup of my special blend won't fix. He set down the tray with practiced ease, pouring amber liquid into delicate china cups. The smell was oddly compelling, chamomile mixed with something earthier. I don't want your tea, Sophia said coldly. Now, Mrs. Holloway, in my experience, conflicts between spouses often stem from simple misunderstandings. Roland's eyes glittered with an enthusiasm that seemed almost hungry. Marcus only wants what's best for you, don't you? Marcus, her husband, picked up a cup with shaking hands. Of course I do. Roland pushed the other cup toward Sophia. Trust is like a muscle, my dear. Sometimes it needs to be exercised under controlled conditions. The words sent ice through her veins. She noticed Marcus watching her intently, studying her reaction, as if she were an experiment herself. Without breaking eye contact, she picked up the cup and raised it to her lips. But she didn't drink. She learned long ago how to fake sipping wine. At boring galas, the skill served her well now as she pretended to swallow Roland's mysterious tea. Delicious, she lied, setting down the still full cup. Roland smiled wider. Wonderful. Sleep well tonight, both of you. Tomorrow, the real work begins. After he left, Sophia watched Marcus drain his entire cup. Either he trusted Roland completely, or he knew exactly what was in that tea. She was no longer sure which possibility frightened her more, unable to sleep beside Marcus, who'd been unconscious since drinking Roland's tea. Sophia crept through the house with her phone's flashlight. Something Roland said echoed in her mind. Controlled conditions. This wasn't just a house, it was a carefully designed environment. She started with the air vents. Running her fingers along the metal grates, she felt unusual thickness, prying. One open revealed why. Soundproofing material lined the ducts. Someone had invested thousands, ensuring conversations couldn't travel between rooms. The walls told a similar story. What looked like decorative wood paneling concealed acoustic foam. Every surface had been modified to contain sound, or screams in. The hallway. She noticed the bedroom doors had a peculiar feature. The locks were on the outside. A chill ran down her spine as she tested each one. They all locked from the hallway, trapping whoever was inside. The basement door had been painted shut, but desperation gave her strength. She wedged a kitchen knife into the seam, working until the paint cracked. The door swung open to reveal wooden stairs descending into darkness. Her phone illuminated a furnished space that made no sense. Filing cabinets lined one wall, while the other held architectural blueprints mounted like artwork. She approached the plans, recognizing the house's layout. But there were differences, rooms that should exist but didn't. Or did they? One blueprint showed a passage behind the kitchen pantry. Another indicated a space above the master bedroom. Hidden rooms, all connected by a network of passages marked observation corridors. Couldn't sleep either. Sophia's scream died in her throat. Marcus stood at the bottom of the stairs, his face pale in the phone light. How long have you been awake? She asked. Long enough. He moved closer, studying the blueprints. Sophia, I can explain these. More explanations, more lies. She grabbed one of the plans. Look at this. Marcus, hidden rooms, observation corridors. This isn't a house. It's a rat maze. They're old plans, he insisted, from renovations that never happened. Roland showed them to me when, during your secret meetings, she pulled open a filing cabinet, finding folders labeled with years. 1991, 1993, 1997, 2001. Each contained photos of different couples, all young, all smiling, all unaware of what awaited them. These people stayed here, she whispered. Roland documented them like specimens. Marcus grabbed her shoulders. We need to leave. Now, pack your things. We'll go. Now you want to leave? She shook him off. After you brought me here deliberately, after you drugged yourself with his tea, I didn't know. His voice cracked. I thought, God, Sophia, I thought I was so clever. I thought I could control this. Control what? Before he could answer, a soft hum filled the basement. The lights flickered on, lights they hadn't turned on. A speaker crackled to life in the corner. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Holloway. Roland's voice surrounded them, coming from multiple hidden speakers. I see you found my archive. How wonderful. Most couples take at least a week to discover the basement. Sophia grabbed Marcus's hand despite her anger. Where are you? Oh, I'm everywhere and nowhere. That's the beauty of good design, isn't it? You came here seeking a beach vacation, but you found so much more. You found my life's work. The speaker clicked off, leaving them in silence broken only by their ragged breathing. Above them, footsteps crossed the floor, multiple sets, moving with purpose. They weren't alone in the house anymore. Perhaps they never had been. The footsteps above suddenly stopped. In the crushing silence, Sophia heard something worse, whispers seeping through the walls. Themselves. Don't trust him. He brought you here. She knows. She knows what you did. Marcus pulled her toward the stairs. It's just recordings. Roland's trying to. The basement door slammed shut. They heard the click of a lock engaging. Just recordings. Sophia backed against the filing cabinets. Like everything else in this nightmare is just coincidence. She yanked open the 1993 folder, spraying photos across the dusty floor. A young couple beamed from Polaroids, the woman's dark hair like Sophia's, the man's confident smile reminiscent of Marcus. David and Elena Chen. She read from a typed note. Arrived May 15, 1993. Departure, blank. She looked up at Marcus. They never left. It's been over 30 years. That's impossible. People don't just vanish for 3 decades in a house designed to contain screams. With locks on the outside of doors, Sophia pulled out more documents. Police report filed by Elena's sister. Investigation closed after 3 weeks. Roland told police they left for Europe. The whispers grew louder, more distinct. A woman's voice, accented and terrified. David, please, we have to get out. He's watching. He's always watching. A man's response, I can't. Don't you see? This is what we need. This is how we prove our love. Marcus had gone rigid beside her. That voice, you recognize it. It wasn't a question. Sophia watched her husband's face crumble. My God, Marcus, you knew them. Chen Industries was a competitor. He whispered. David was brilliant. When he disappeared in '93, his company folded within a year. The patents, the contracts, they were absorbed by larger firms. The basement lights began to flicker. In the strobe effect, Sophia saw something that made her gasp. Fresh scratches on the concrete wall, spelling out still here, EC. Those weren't here before. Marcus breathed. A new voice joined the whispers. Roland's clinical tone from decades past. Day 12. David shows increased dependence on validation. Elena exhibits resistance. Recommend escalation to phase 3. Protocols. Sophia grabbed another folder. 1997. Another couple. Another blank departure date. Then 2001. Same story. Her hands shook as she reached for 2025. Their names were already printed on the label. Inside, surveillance photos showed their arrival just days ago. Marcus choosing this house online. Sophia packing. Every moment documented before they'd even met Roland. He's been watching us, she said. This whole time, before we even came here, the lights cut out completely. In the darkness, the whispers became screams. Elena Chen's voice rose above the rest. The tunnels. He keeps us in the tunnels. 30 years in the dark. A crack of light appeared not from above, but from the wall itself. A hidden panel swung open, revealing a narrow passage. Fresh air flowed from it, carrying the salt smell of the ocean. And something else, the musty scent of long habitation. Sophia, Marcus grabbed her hand. We have to go through. It's our only way out. But she heard what he didn't or pretended not to hear. Beneath the ocean scent was the smell of unwashed bodies, of people who'd been hiding, surviving in darkness for decades. You go first, she said. Together. His grip tightened. We go together, or not at all. The whispers agreed. Together. Always together. 30 years together in the dark. The panel began to close. Soon they'd be trapped with only the voices, and the scratches and the photos of couples who learned to late. That some houses don't let you leave. Sophia made her choice. She plunged into the passage, pulling Marcus behind her, following the scent of 3 decades of captivity into the darkness. Behind them, Roland's laughter echoed through hidden speakers. Excellent choice, my dear. Elena is so looking forward to meeting you. She's been alone in the tunnels for such a very long time. The passage led to a hidden study beneath the main house. Dusty computers from different decades lined the walls, their screens dark but waiting. Sophia found a light switch, illuminating filing systems that would make any researcher weep with envy or horror. Look at this, she breathed, pulling out a leather journal. Roland's personal notes. Marcus stood guard by the entrance, but Sophia could see him reading over her shoulder as she flipped through pages of meticulous handwriting. Subject couple number 11991, Richard and Marie Dalton. Hypothesis: financial stress accelerates trust breakdown. Result: Marie discovered Richard's deception by day 6. Permanent containment required when she attempted escape. Containment. Marcus's voice cracked. Sophia kept reading. Subject couple number 31993, David and Elena Chen. Hypothesis: cultural loyalty conflicts can be exploited. Result: David chose preservation of family honor over wife's safety. Elena escaped initial containment relocated to tunnel system. David, phase for conditioning successful. Her hands trembled as she found more entries. 3 couples per property, all disappearing within 2-week windows. All young professionals with secrets. The pattern was clear Roland had been perfecting his methods for over 30 years. Sophia. Marcus pulled a manila envelope from behind a monitor. You need to see this. Inside were printouts of emails. Her blood ran cold as she recognized Marcus's corporate address. Dear Dr. Kempner, she read aloud. Thank you for considering my application for your couple's resilience program. As discussed, I'm particularly interested in your work on unbreakable bonds through controlled adversity. Sophia comes from considerable wealth, and after my insider trading issues, I need absolute certainty. She couldn't finish. The room spun as she processed the words. You hired him. You hired a psychopath to what? Trap me. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Marcus grabbed the papers. Look at the rest. Look, she snatched them back, reading his later emails. Doctor, your references to previous participants concern me. Can you guarantee their well-being? And Roland's response, all participants achieve optimal outcomes based on their psychological profiles, Mr. Holloway. I thought it was intensive therapy, Marcus pleaded. When I researched him after that first response, I found the Chen case. I tried to cancel, but he said he'd already begun preparations. He knew about my insider trading, about the Chen Industries acquisition. He threatened. So you brought me anyway. Sophia backed away from him. You knew he was dangerous. You brought me here. A door opened in the far wall. A woman shuffled and thin beyond belief, hair wild and gray-streaked, wearing layers of tattered clothing. Visitors, she whispered. After so long, visitors. Sophia's heart stopped. Despite the decades of change, she recognized the face from the photos. Elena Chen. The woman's eyes flickered with a spark of who she'd been. That was my name. Above ground. Before the dark. 31 years, 2 months, 15 days in the tunnels. She counted on her fingers obsessively. Roland brings food. Sometimes, when he remembers. You've been down here since 1993. Sophia fell sick. The tunnels go everywhere. Under all the houses. I listen. I watch through the grates. Elena moved closer. Her smell overwhelming. I know all his secrets. Where he keeps them. Where David is. David's alive. Marcus stepped forward. Elena laughed. A broken sound. Alive is relative. He chose honor over me. So Roland gave him what he wanted, a perfect cage where he never has to choose again. Room 9. Sub-basement. Been there since year 2 of our treatment. But the whispers, Sophia said. We heard you both. Recordings. Roland plays them for new couples. But I had my own sometimes. Elena smiled, revealing gaps in her teeth. The scratches on the walls. That's me. Trying to warn you. Footsteps echoed from above. Multiple sets. Moving with purpose. He's bringing the others, Elena whispered. The graduated ones. They help him now. Better to help than to hide. She grabbed Sophia's hands with surprising strength. But some of us just wait and plan and remember everything. She pressed a key into Sophia's palm. Sub-basement. Room 9. David might remember me, or might not. 30 years is a long time to be perfect. The footsteps were getting closer. Dr. Roland Kempner. Sophia spoke the name like a curse. I found your PUBLISHED papers, Extreme Fidelity Through Engineered Crisis. The medical board called your methods torture. Roland's eyes lit up with pleasure. You've done your homework. How refreshing. Most subjects require explanation, but you understand the elegance of my work. Elegance? Marcus struggled against Richard's grip. You're destroying people. I'm revealing them, Roland corrected. Tell me, Marcus, when you paid me $500,000 for this retreat, what did you think you were buying? Sophia froze. $500,000. The premium package. Roland continued. Complete environmental control, pharmaceutical support, and guaranteed results. Your husband was quite specific about his needs. Weren't you, Marcus? Marcus's face had gone gray. I just wanted her to trust me completely. After the insider trading, I knew if she ever found out, she'd leave you penniless. Roland finished. Yes, you were quite clear. A wife who would never abandon you, no matter what she discovered. A love that could survive any revelation. Eleanor released Sophia's wrist and moved to a filing cabinet, retrieving a contract. Her movements were mechanical, but her eyes held desperate intelligence. Initial here, she said, pointing to blank spaces. But her finger traced different words. Police, tomorrow, dawn. Sophia understood. Eleanor was still in there, playing a longer game than anyone realized. The process has 3 stages. Roland lectured, warming to his subject. First, isolation and environmental control. Second, introduction of targeted stressors based on preliminary surveillance. Third, pharmaceutical intervention to cement new behavioral patterns. The T, Sophia said, a mild psychotropic compound, increases suggestibility, decreases resistance. Poor Marcus drank it willingly, such trust in his doctor. Roland chuckled. But you, my dear, you pretended. How delightful. He pulled out a leather journal, flipping to recent entries, 2 years of preparation. I studied your family dynamics, your attachment patterns, your breaking points. Marcus gave me full access to your lives. 2 years? Sophia turned to Marcus. We've only been married for 3. The truth hung between them like a blade. He'd been planning this before he'd even proposed. The engagement ring, she whispered. You said it was your grandmother's, but you bought it after meeting with him. I needed insurance. Marcus's voice broke. Your family's fortune, my company's debts, so you hired a monster to cage me. Tears burned her eyes, but she wouldn't give Roland the satisfaction, and now you're caged too. Roland applauded softly. Brilliant deduction. You see, Marcus believed he was the experimenter, but every client becomes a subject. His psychological profile was even more fascinating than yours. Such delicious irony, the predator becoming prey. He gestured to his hollow-eyed assistants. Richard thought he was testing his wife's loyalty. James believed he was curing his partner's anxiety. David wanted to prove his love transcended cultural expectations. All of them learned late that I don't work for anyone. They work for me now. And the women? Sophia asked. Some adapt like Eleanor. Some don't. His smile faltered slightly. Murray Dalton was particularly stubborn. James's wife Sarah, too. The failures are buried in my garden. Excellent fertilizer for my roses. The casual admission of murder shattered Marcus's remaining composure. You're confessing to killing them. Confessing implies wrongdoing. I'm simply noting failed experiments. Roland checked his watch. Now, shall we begin your phase 2? I'm curious to see how you'll perform. A scream shattered the night, not from inside, but from the beach. Roland's controlled demeanor cracked. As he rushed to the window, impossible, he muttered dot through the glass. Sophia saw a figure stumbling across the sand. A woman in torn, modern clothing, her hair wet with seawater, face gone from hunger, but fierce with determination. But we just saw Eleanor in the tunnels, Marcus said. Confused, the woman on the beach was screaming one word over and over. Freedom. Roland's face went purple. Sarah, code 7. Now, Sarah, who they'd all believe was Eleanor, tilted her head. Phase 6 deception protocol compromised, she said mechanically. That's not Eleanor Chen, doctor. That's Angela Winters, from House 12. She wasn't supposed to get her, Roland roared. All of you, now. His assistants scattered, but Sarah remained, her hollow facade cracking. The moment Roland followed the others out, her entire demeanor changed. Thank God, she whispered urgently. I'm James Morrison's wife. I've been pretending to be broken for 3 years, moving between Roland's houses as needed. The real Eleanor Chen is still in the tunnels under this property. You met her, didn't you? She's been there since 1993. Then who is? Sophia began. Angela Winters, kept at the Santa Cruz property. She escaped during a transfer. Sarah grabbed Sophia's hands. She's carrying evidence. USB drives hidden in her clothes. 30 years of Roland's crimes. Through the window, they watched Angela collapse on the beach just as police sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had seen her. Someone had called for help. She chose her moment perfectly, Sarah said. Roland's too invested in you two to abandon the house. He'll try to clean up, destroy evidence. The Eleanor situation complicates everything. He can't explain a woman who's been missing for 30 years living in his tunnels. We need to help her, Sophia said. They burst from the study, racing upstairs. Roland was in the kitchen, frantically feeding documents into the fireplace. His assistants hadn't returned, probably fleeing the approaching sirens. It's over, Sophia announced. Roland spun, his mask finally gone. You understand nothing. 20 years of research, proof that love is just conditioning, trust merely chemistry, is that what you tell yourself. Marcus stepped forward. That you're a scientist instead of a sadist who's been keeping Elena Chen in tunnels for 3 decades. Elena chose her path. Roland shrieked. She could have joined David in phase 4, but she chose resistance. 30 years of resistance. Do you know how valuable that data is? The sirens grew louder. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. She survived your worst, Sophia said softly. 3 decades underground, and she still remembers who she is, still tries to warn others. That's not data, Roland. That's human resilience you could never break. And Angela, Sarah added quietly, 2 years of your treatment, and she still fought her way to freedom. How many others are fighting? Right now, Roland lunged for a kitchen knife, but Marcus tackled him. They crashed into the counter, sending the weapon spinning across the floor. The front door exploded inward. Police officers flooded the house, weapons drawn. Through the chaos, Sophia saw Angela Winters being helped inside by paramedics, thin but triumphant, clutching something in her fist. The drives, Angela gasped, holding them out. Every house, every victim, including. She locked eyes with Roland, including Elena Chen, still alive, still in the tunnels. 31 years, Roland. You kept her for 31 years. As officers restrained Roland, he locked eyes with Sophia one last time. She could have been perfect, he whispered. They all could have been perfect. They already were, Sophia replied. That's why they survived you. An officer approached. Mom, the woman says there are tunnels. With someone still down there. Elena Chen, Sophia confirmed. She's been surviving in the tunnel system since 1993. She needs immediate medical attention as they led search teams to find Elena. Sophia heard Roland laughing, the sound of a man whose world had finally collapsed under the weight of his own obsession. 31 years, he kept repeating. The longest study, the perfect subject, and she never broke. She never broke. While police processed the scene, Detective Martinez led Sophia to a quiet corner. Elena Chen sat wrapped in a blanket, her eyes sharp despite her ordeal. We need to talk about your husband, Elena said without preamble. About why Roland really chose you. Marcus was in the kitchen, giving his statement. Sophia glanced at him, seeing a stranger. Tell me, Elena pulled out a waterproof pouch she kept hidden for 2 years. Inside were photocopied emails, financial records, and contracts. I was Roland's bookkeeper before he took me. I saw everything. The documents painted a damning picture. Marcus hadn't just paid $500,000 for a twisted couples retreat. He'd been systematically embezzling from Sophia's family trust for months, using their joint accounts to hide the transfers. He was going to blame you, Elena explained. Make it look like you'd been stealing from your own family. Roland was going to discover this during your stay, use it to break you psychologically. Sophia's hands shook as she read her forged signatures. But if I was broken, drugged, declared mentally unstable, Marcus would get power of attorney, full control of your inheritance. Elena's voice was gentle but firm. My David did something similar, used our cultural values against me. These men didn't just want obedient wives, they wanted access to our resources. Detective Martinez had been listening. This is evidence of financial fraud, conspiracy, false imprisonment. There's more, Elena said. She showed them a contract between Marcus and Roland dated a month before the Chen Industries acquisition. Marcus didn't benefit from David's disappearance by accident. He knew Roland had him. The room tilted. Sophia gripped the table. He knew you were prisoners and he still brought you here. Elena squeezed her hand. But you're stronger than I was. You fought back immediately. It took me months to see through David's lies. Through the doorway, Sophia watched Marcus charm the other officers, playing the victim. He didn't know about Elena's evidence. Didn't know his carefully constructed plan was already rubble. The company bankruptcy, she said suddenly, is that real? Elena smiled grimly. Oh yes, but not from market forces. Marcus has been bleeding it dry, preparing to disappear with your money once you were handled. Mrs. Holloway, an officer appeared. Your husband is asking for you. Sophia stood, Elena's evidence in her hands. Perfect. I have some questions for him too. She found Marcus in the living room, his face a mask of concern. Darling, are you all right? This nightmare, I had no idea Roland was. Stop, she held up the contracts. I know about the embezzlement. the forgeries, the conspiracy with Roland dating back to David Chen. His mask slipped for just a moment, long enough to see the calculating coldness beneath. Then he smiled, that same charming smile that had won her heart. You're traumatized. Roland's manipulations have confused you. Those documents must be fake, like our entire marriage. She stepped closer. Tell me, when you proposed on the beach, were you thinking about love or my trust fund? His silence was answer enough. The saddest part, she continued, is that I actually love you. Would have helped you with your debts if you just asked. But you chose this instead. Police, officers moving, cuffs ready. As they read Marcus's rights, he kept his eyes on Sophia. You'll forgive me, he said. You always forgive. It's who you are. No, she replied. That's who you tried to make me, but I choose who I am now. The basement had become a crime scene, but Detective Martinez allowed Sophia one final visit. She needed to see the full scope of what Marcus and Roland had built together. Over here, Elena guided them to a wall of VHS players and monitors. Roland called it his evolution archive. Dozens of tapes lined the shelves, each labeled with dates and initials. Sophia found MHSH preliminary phase and inserted it with trembling fingers. The screen flickered to life. Marcus sat in what looked like Roland's office, not here, but somewhere clinical, professional. The timestamp showed 6 months before their wedding. Subject shows narcissistic tendencies with high intelligence. Roland's voice narrated. Recommend exploiting his belief in his own superiority. He genuinely thinks he can outsmart the process. The scene shifted. Hidden camera footage of their apartment, her apartment, before Marcus moved in. She watched herself sleeping while Marcus went through her financial documents, photographing each page. He's been planning this for years, she whispered. Elena changed tapes. This one's worse. New footage. Marcus watching earlier sessions. David and Elena Chan arguing in the very room where Sophia now stood. Richard and Murray Dalton sobbing as Roland explained their trust exercises. James and Sarah Morrison trying desperately to escape through locked doors. But most chilling was Marcus's reactions. He took notes. He smiled at their terror. He asked Roland, how can we make sure Sophia breaks faster than the others? Turn it off, Sophia said. But Elena grabbed her hand. You need to see the last part. The final tape was different. Just Roland and Marcus dated 1 week ago. You realize, Roland said on screen, that I'll need to break you two. It's the only way to ensure authenticity. Marcus laughed. You can try, but I know your methods now. I'm immune. Are you? Roland smiled. Tell me, Marcus, why did you really choose Sophia? Her money, or because she reminds you of your mother, the one who abandoned you for a wealthier man? Marcus's confident mask cracked. That's not. I've done my research too. 8 years old. Watching your mother pack her bags. Mommy needs someone who can take care of her properly. Isn't that what she said? The Marcus on screen began to shake. Stop. So you found Sophia. Wealthy, trusting, nothing like mother except for one thing, she could leave you too. Unless you made sure she couldn't. You're wrong, Sophia said. I look nothing like her. Elena pulled up a photo. On Roland's computer, a woman from the 1990s, elegant, blonde, Marcus's mother. The resemblance to Sophia was subtle, but undeniable. The eyes, the way she held her head. Every subject tells themselves they're in control, Elena said softly. David thought he was protecting our family honor. James believed he was helping. Sarah, Marcus convinced himself he was securing his future. But Roland played them all, on screen. The final recording showed Roland turning to the camera. Marcus Holloway believes he's my student. In truth, he's my masterpiece. A man so damaged he'll destroy what he loves most, believing he's saving it. Sophia Harrison will be the ultimate test. Can true love survive engineered betrayal? The screen went dark. In the reflection, Sophia saw her own face, older now, harder, but free. Ma'am, Detective Martinez had returned. We found something you need to see. He led them to a section of wall that had been open. Inside, a small room with one-way glass looked into the master bedroom. A chair, recording equipment, and hundreds of hours of footage. He wasn't just recording you, the detective said. He was sitting here, watching, sometimes for hours. On the desk was a journal in Marcus's handwriting. Day 12. Trust completely. Implementation can begin. Day 45. First doubt seated. She's looking at me differently. Progress. Day 72. Roland says I'm going to fast. But I know better. By day 100, she'll be mine forever. The final entry was from yesterday. She knows something. But it's too late. Tomorrow, phase 3 begins. Sophia. Close the journal. He really thought he'd won. They always do, Elena said. Until they realize they're playing Roland's game, not their own. Elena's weathered hand grabbed Sophia's arm. The woman they'd met in the tunnels, who'd survived 31 years in darkness, pointed toward the pantry. David's still down there. My David, room 9, like I told you. Detective Martinez called for backup, but Sophia couldn't wait. Following Elena's direction, she knew every passage. Every hidden door they found a concealed hatch in the pantry floor. Metal rungs descended into darkness. The smell hit first antiseptic mixed with the musty scent of long imprisonment. Emergency lighting cast sickly green shadows on concrete walls. The passage opened into a medical facility that belonged in a horror film, not a beach house. My God, Martinez breathed. 3 cells lined one wall, each with reinforced glass. The first 2 were empty. In the third, a figure sat motionless on a cot. David. Elena rushed to the glass, pressing her palms against it. 31 years of separation ended in this moment. The man looked up slowly. Asian features. Once handsome, now gone from decades of captivity. His eyes held a terrible blankness. Phase. For complete, he said tonelessly, trust parameters satisfied. You're 31 of treatment. No. David, it's me. It's Elena. She pounded on the glass, tears streaming down her weathered face. Sophia found the cell controls modern, recently upgraded. As the lock disengaged, they heard commotion above, through the security monitors. She saw Marcus being dragged away by 2 officers. Let me go. Marcus's voice echoed down. I need to explain. The sedatives. David needs his sedatives. Suddenly, Marcus appeared at the top of the ladder, having broken free. His face was wild, desperate. You don't understand. David's medications, without them, he could die. You've been maintaining this, Sophia said with dawning horror. Not just Roland. You've been helping keep him drugged. For how long? Marcus. 6 months. Marcus's voice cracked. Roland made me part of the preparation. Said I needed to understand the process. David was the perfect example. 30 years of phase for conditioning. Complete ego death. Perfect. Compliance. Elena had opened the cell, cradling David's unresponsive form. Monster. She spat at Marcus. You knew my husband was here. You knew I was in the tunnels. You helped keep us apart. I didn't know about you until tonight. Marcus pleaded. Roland said David was alone, that his wife had died years ago trying to escape. I thought. You thought what? That it was acceptable to keep drugging a man who'd been in prison for 3 decades? Martinez had his weapon drawn. Step away from the ladder, now. But Marcus laughed bitterly. You still don't get it. I'm not the assistant. I'm another experiment. Roland's been drugging me too in the tea, in the food, making me compliant, willing to do things I'd never. His voice broke. 6 months of doses. I can feel it wearing off now. The clarity is terrifying. Something flickered in David's eyes, a moment of recognition as Elena held him. Ela. Nah, I'm here. She sobbed. I'm here, my love. 31 years, but I never gave up. I never stopped loving you. The sound of their reunion. Elena's tears. David's confused murmurs as awareness slowly returned broke something in Marcus. It was supposed to be simple. He whispered, pay Roland to make sure Sophia would never leave me. Instead, he made me into this, someone who could watch David suffer and feel nothing. The medications, Sophia said suddenly, if David's been on them for 30 years, withdrawal could actually be dangerous. There's a medical kit in the observation room, Marcus said. Withdrawal protocols. Roland planned for everything. He looked at Sophia with eyes that seemed truly clear for the first time in months. I'm sorry. God, Sophia, I'm so sorry. I brought you into this nightmare. And then I became part of it. Martinez gestured to his officers. Take him. We'll need full medical evaluations on every one of the victims and the perpetrators. After 30 years, we need to be careful. As they led Marcus away, Sophia heard David speak again. Stronger now. The others. There are others. Where? Martinez demanded. David pointed weakly to a wall that looked solid. Roland's private collection. The ones who graduated. Some from the 90s. Still here. Still waiting. Elena's face went pale. Marie Dalton. Richard. All of them. David whispered. He never let anyone truly leave. 30 years of collecting broken people. The wall David indicated had no visible seams, but Elena, who'd spent decades learning every secret of this place, found the mechanism. As it rumbled open, Sophia realized the true scope of Roland's madness. He hadn't just experimented on couples. He'd built a kingdom of captives, some hiding, some helping, all trapped in the maze of his obsession. And somewhere in that darkness, more victims waited for freedom that was 3 decades overdue. The wall David indicated had no visible seams, but Elena's fingers found invisible sensors with practiced ease. 31 years, you learn every secret, she muttered. The wall rumbled open. Beyond lay Roland's true laboratory, a circular room with screens covering every surface. Each monitor showed a different room, a different house, timestamps spanning decades. At the center sat a control station worthy of a broadcast studio. Dear God, Martinez whispered. How many properties? Sophia counted quickly. 15 screens, 15 locations. She recognized the Monterey house, but the others showed unfamiliar rooms, all occupied. They're live feeds, she realized. Those people, they're there right now, on one screen. A couple argued in a kitchen identical to theirs. Another showed a woman alone, rocking and muttering. A third displayed a man methodically destroying furniture while his partner watched in terror. David, leaning heavily on Elena after 3 decades of drugging, pointed to a filing system. Subject files. Roland studied us all, made us study each other. Part of Phase 4, understanding the system that trapped you. Marcus, still in restraints, but allowed to stay for information. Laughed bitterly. You think this is bad? Check. The archive footage, thousands of hours. He didn't just document experiments, he created a library of human breaking points. Elena moved to a specific drawer with disturbing familiarity. 1993, our year. She pulled out a thick folder. He made me watch sometimes, in the early years. Before I escaped to the tunnels, said I needed to see David's progress. The file contained photos showing David's gradual transformation from a proud businessman to a hollow shell. Medical records documenting precise drug dosages. Roland's notes on ego dissolution and identity reconstruction. But here's what Roland never knew, Elena said, her voice stronger. David was conscious inside, weren't you, love? David nodded, slowly. 20 years pretending. After year 10, I learned to hide inside my own mind. Let the drugs have my body, but kept my soul buried deep. Waiting, impossible, Marcus breathed. The dosages, you only maintained him for 6 months, Elena snapped. David had 30 years to build tolerance, to learn the rhythms. He knew when Roland would check, what responses to give. My brilliant husband beat him at his own game. Detective Martinez was on his radio, coordinating simultaneous raids on all 15 properties. On the screens, they watched SWAT teams positioning outside the other houses. Wait, Sophia pointed to one monitor. That's Roland. He stood in what looked like another control room, watching his empire crumble. Even now, he was taking notes, observing the chaos with scientific detachment. An agent's voice came through the speakers. Dr. Kempner, you're surrounded. Exit with your hands visible. Roland looked directly at the camera. Fascinating, even in collapse. The patterns hold. Fear, anger, relief, all perfectly predictable. Sophia, I know you're watching. This is the final lesson. He's insane. Martinez muttered. No, David said quietly. He's exactly what he created. A man so lost in his own experiment, he can't see reality anymore. He studied broken people so long. He became one. On the screens, coordinated raids began. Doors breached simultaneously across the country, in a Manhattan penthouse, a Chicago brownstone, a Seattle cottage, victims emerging into freedom after years, some after decades. There, Elena pointed to one screen. That's Marie Dalton, 1991. She's alive. A woman in her 50s stumbled out of a hidden room, blinking in the light. On another screen, a man they recognized as Richard Dalton was pulled from what looked like a maintenance closet, muttering Phase 7 complete over and over. He kept them all, Sophia whispered. 30 years of victims hidden in walls, basements, tunnels. The successful ones became assistants, David explained. The resistant ones like Elena were contained differently. The broken ones like me were showcased, but nobody ever really left. One by one, the monitors showed scenes of liberation. Couples reuniting after forced separations. Individuals seeing sunlight for the first time in years. Roland's assistants themselves victims surrendering with relief. Final count coming in. Martinez announced 43 direct victims across all properties, some dating back to 1989. When he started, Elena said, he told me once his first experiment was on himself, testing isolation, chemical compliance. He broke himself before he broke anyone else. On Roland's monitor, agents breached his control room. He didn't resist, just kept writing in his journal until they cuffed him. Phase 9 interrupted. They heard him say, but the data is complete. 40 years of proof that human connection is merely sophisticated conditioning. Even my own. The screens went dark one by one as evidence teams took control. In the silence that followed, Sophia looked around the room at Elena and David, reunited after 31 years. At Marcus, facing the truth of what he'd become. At the empty cells that had held human beings like specimens. He was wrong, she said. Connection isn't conditioning. Elena proved that 31 years in tunnels, and she never stopped loving David. David proved that decades of drugs couldn't erase his core self. Even the broken ones chose connection over isolation, except Roland. Marcus said quietly, he chose the experiment over everything else. And that, Elena said, is why he lost. You can't study love from outside it. You can't understand human connection without being human yourself. He turned himself into an observer and forgot how to be a participant as they prepared to leave this chamber of horrors. David spoke one last time. 40 years he studied us, but we survived. Broken, changed, but human. That's the only data that matters. The last monitor flickered once, showing Roland in custody. Still writing, still observing, trapped forever. In the experiment of his own making, federal agents brought Roland back to the Monterey house in chains. He'd insisted on returning, claiming he needed to complete the experiment. Against protocol, the lead investigator agreed they needed him to reveal any remaining victims. Sophia waited in the living room, Elena and David beside her. Marcus remained in custody, but she wanted to face Roland one last time. He entered, with dignity intact, gray hair perfectly combed despite the shackles. His eyes found Sophia immediately. My greatest failure, he said softly. You broke the pattern. I was never your subject, Sophia replied. I was a person. That's what you never understood. Roland tilted his head. But you followed every predicted behavior. Initial trust, growing suspicion, the basement discovery, even your compassion. For Marcus at the end, all within parameters. Then why did I succeed where others failed? Because you knew you were being tested. His voice held genuine puzzlement. Most subjects believe their experience is unique. You recognize the experiment itself. Elena stood. We all recognized it, Roland. Eventually. You just couldn't see past your own delusions. Delusions? Roland's calm cracked. I've documented. Proof that love is merely chemical dependency. That trust is conditioned response. 40 years of data. 40 years of torture. David interrupted. You proved nothing except that people can be broken. Congratulations. Any thug with a crowbar knows that. Roland's face flushed. You stayed in phase 4 for 20 years. You're proof that my methods. I stayed conscious, David corrected. Every day, choosing to play dead rather than let you win. That wasn't your programming, Roland. That was love. Love for Elena, keeping me sane in that cell. Impossible. The dosages, I learned your patterns. David smiled grimly. When you check, what'd you look for? I beat you at your own game. The revelation shattered Roland's composure. He lunged forward, but agents restrained him. Where are the others? Sophia demanded. Sarah said Marie Dalton was murdered. Who? Elsa. Roland's laugh was bitter. Define murder. If someone chooses to stop eating rather than continue treatment, is that my fault? If they find creative uses for bed sheets, am I responsible? Yes, Elena said simply. You are. An agent handed Sophia a tablet. We found this in his control room. It's a list. 17 names. 17 people who hadn't survived Roland's treatment. She recognized some from the files. Marie Dalton, James Morrison's first wife. Others lost to Roland's obsession. They weren't failures, Sophia said, looking at Roland. They were people who refused to break the way you wanted. That's not weakness, that's strength. Strength, Roland spat. They chose death over enlightenment. They chose themselves over your version of them. Sophia stepped closer. That terrifies you, doesn't it? that some people would rather die free than live as your puppets. For the first time, Roland had no response. The saddest part, she continued, is that you actually had insights. Understanding how trauma bonds form, how isolation affects cognition, you could have helped people. Instead, you became the very thing you claimed to study. A man so afraid of abandonment that you imprisoned everyone who got close. Don't psychoanalyze me, Roland snarled. Why not? You've done it to everyone else. She pulled out Marcus's contract, including yourself. Look at your notes about Marcus. Subject exhibits paternal abandonment trauma. Sounds familiar? A brilliant psychologist, abandoned by the medical community, building elaborate prisons to ensure no one could leave again. Roland's face went white. That's not how not human, vulnerable, capable of being wrong. Sophia shook her head. That's where you failed, Roland. You forgot that you're just as human as the rest of us, just as broken, just as desperate to be loved. The agents led him away, but his eyes remained fixed on Sophia, seeing her truly for the first time. I could have made you perfect, he whispered. I already told you, she replied. I'm perfectly human. That's enough. 6 hours later, the FBI command center received an urgent call. The transport vehicle carrying Roland had been found abandoned, guards unconscious but alive. Roland Kempner had vanished. Impossible, Agent Coleman muttered, reviewing the footage. He was in maximum restraints, but Sophia, watching the replay, saw what they'd missed. The guard who'd secured Roland's changed his movements were too precise to practice. That's not a real guard. That's one of his subjects. The investigation exploded outward. Roland hadn't just collected victims, he'd cultivated disciples. Broken people who embraced their conditioning, spreading across law enforcement, medical facilities, government agencies, a network. Elena breathed. He built a network. David pulled up Roland's files on a laptop. Look at this. Phase 7. Integration. Subjects who graduate are placed in positions of authority. Judges, doctors, police. Sleeper agents. Marcus said from his cell via video link. He told me once that the real experiment wasn't the couples, it was society itself. How many broken people could he place before the system noticed? The FBI scrambled to identify compromised personnel. Meanwhile, Sophia received a text from an unknown number, a photo of another beach house, this one in Maine. He's taunting us, Coleman said. No, Sophia studied the image. He's inviting me. Look at the window. In the second floor window, barely visible. Someone had arranged seashells to spell help. There's another victim, against all protests. Sophia insisted on joining the raid team. She understood Roland's psychology. Now he needed an audience, particularly her. She'd become his fixation by refusing to break. The main house was a mirror of Monterey, but older, more elaborate. As they breached the entrance, Sophia heard a violin music, beautiful and haunting. They found Roland in an upstairs study, calmly writing in his journal. Beside him, a young woman played violin, her eyes vacant. Aunt Sophia. He didn't look up. Right on schedule. Meet Christina. Phase 8 prototype. Phase 8. Despite herself, Sophia was curious, voluntary, conditioning. Roland's smile was serene. Christina came to me, begged me to remove her painful memories. Her husband's death, you see, tragic accident. The violinist never stopped playing, even as agents surrounded them. She doesn't remember him anymore, Roland continued. Doesn't remember anything before arriving here. Perfect peace through perfect emptiness. The future of psychology. That's not peace, Sophia said. That's erasure, is it? Roland finally looked at her, asked Christina if she wants her memories back. The woman paused her playing. Why would I want pain? Her voice was dreamy, distant. The doctor freed me. You freed her from herself, Sophia said. From everything that made her human. Humanity is overrated. Roland stood slowly. I've spent 50 years studying it. Love, trust, connection, all just chemical reactions exploiting evolutionary imperatives. I simply refine the process. Then why run? Sophia challenged. If you're so convinced of your righteousness, why not face justice? Because justice is another illusion, like love, like choice. He gestured to the window. Do you know why I chose beach houses? The ocean is honest. It doesn't pretend to be anything but hungry. It takes what it wants, reshapes the shore to its will. I'm simply nature, refined. As agents moved to arrest him, Roland pressed something in his pocket. A hidden panel opened in the floor. The prototype phase ends now, he said. Stepping backward, the real experiment begins. He fell through the opening before anyone could react. They heard a splash water, not concrete, an escape route to the ocean. By the time they reached the hidden cove beneath the house, Roland was gone. Only his journal remained, floating in the tide pool. The final entry read, Subject Sophia Holloway has proven the hypothesis. Even the strongest love can be weaponized. She came to save a stranger, knowing it was a trap. Compassion as compulsion, empathy as weakness. Phase 9 can begin. 6 months later, Sophia stood before a congressional hearing, her voice steady as she testified about Roland's network. 17 properties had been shut down, 43 victims freed, hundreds of hours of footage entered as evidence. The most insidious part, she told the committee, wasn't the physical imprisonment. It was how he made people complicit in their own captivity. He found our deepest fears and turned them into cages. Marcus had pled guilty, receiving 25 years. His testimony exposed dozens of Roland's accomplices embedded in corporations. Using psychological profiles to identify vulnerable targets, Elena and David sat in the gallery, hands intertwined. David's recovery had been slow but real. Every day, I choose to come back, he told Sophia. Love isn't programming. It's a choice you make over and over. After the hearing, Sophia met with Christina, the violinist from Maine. Months of careful therapy had restored some memories, though she'd chosen to keep others buried. Do you regret stopping him? Christina asked. No, Sophia said. You deserve the chance to choose for yourself. We all do. That evening, Sophia stood in her new office, CEO of the Holloway Foundation for Psychological Trauma Recovery. She'd liquidated Marcus's assets and her inheritance, creating a network to counter Roland's. Her assistant knocked. Miss Holloway, there's a package, no return address. Inside, a single photograph, Roland, aged but unmistakable, standing before a beach house in Costa Rica. On the back, his handwriting. Phase 9 proceeds. The strongest subjects become the best. Teachers, thank you for the inspiration. Sophia felt the old fear spike, then settle. She picked up her phone, dialing the FBI. But first, she looked at the photo again. Behind Roland, barely visible in a window, someone had arranged seashells to spell help. He'll never stop, she said when Coleman answered. He'll keep finding vulnerable people, keep building his twisted families, then we'll keep stopping him. Coleman replied, We've frozen his assets, flagged his DNA, circulated his image globally. But Sophia knew better. Roland had spent 50 years perfecting his craft. He had disciples, resources, and absolute belief in his mission. She turned to the wall where she'd hung photos of every survivor. Murray Dalton, who'd fought until the end. Sarah Morrison, who'd saved herself through deception. Elena and David, who'd found each other again. Even Marcus, who'd finally faced the truth of what he'd become. You're wrong about one thing, Roland, she said to the photograph. Love isn't weakness. It's the only thing that saved any of us. She lit a match, watching his image curl and blacken. Tomorrow, she'd forward the information to authorities. Tonight, she had dinner with Elena and David, Christina joining them for the first time. Her phone rang. Another survivor from the Chicago house, ready to tell their story. Holloway Foundation, she answered. How can we help you reclaim your life? As she listened to another voice finding strength, Sophia smiled. Roland thought he'd proven love was just conditioning, trust merely chemistry. Instead, he'd shown its opposite, that real connection couldn't be programmed or forced or faked. It had to be chosen freely, over and over again. In the end, that was the one variable Roland Kempner, for all his genius, had never understood. Choice itself was the experiment, and the only successful outcome was freedom. Outside her window, the sun set over a different ocean, painting the sky in shades of hope.